Now, there's been an increased pressure on the Prime Minister to extend free school meals for vulnerable children during the school holidays. A letter signed by more than 2,000 paediatricians has been sent to Boris Johnson telling him that childhood hunger should transcend politics. Now, I'm joined by Claire Stevens from the British Society of the Paediatric Dentistry, who is a paediatric dental consultant herself. Claire, thanks for joining us. Thanks for giving us your time.
Thank you for the invitation.
Now, you pointed out another thing that is a byproduct of the free school meals, and that is that if people are having to reduce the amount of money they can spend on food, they tend to end up with food that not only causes obesity, but also can have a serious side effect on children's teeth, which is a huge problem, and it's something that we don't really talk about.
Yes, that's right. I mean, it's the most common reason for a child to be admitted to hospital in this country, to have rotten teeth taken out under general anaesthetic. So pre-COVID, we already had a serious challenge, and lots of work was underway to try and improve that situation. And we also know that children coming from lower socioeconomic groups are much more likely to experience toothache and problems with their teeth and have difficulties in accessing dental care. So this, combined with a pandemic, which of course none of us could have foreseen, has meant that we have a situation on our hands now where an already significant challenge is now getting worse. And we know that families are struggling to make ends meet. Perhaps earlier in the year, they might have not had those concerns and not living quite so close to the breadline, but many have found themselves the wrong side of that line and are having very difficult choices to make. So there will be impacts on oral health as well.
Now, the numbers are staggering. When we started looking into this subject, I mean, there were 44,000, just over 44,000 extractions of multiple teeth in under 18s in England alone in the year 2018 to 2019 at the cost of £41.5 million, according to the NHS. That's equivalent to 177 extractions per working day.
Exactly. One child every 10 seconds. One child every 10 minutes. Sorry. It's a staggering statistic. And this is what we need to get our heads around, investing in prevention. And that includes addressing hunger, hidden hunger and child malnutrition should be central to a COVID-19 response. And those benefits will be there for children's oral health as well as the general health agenda as well.
Of course, it makes a mockery of the whole money issue because at the cost of £41.5 million, that could easily be used, the same amount of money could be used to supply the free school meals. I know this is a slightly simplistic way of putting it, but Claire, what is the correlation, or do we know that the correlation is definitely there between poor diet and bad teeth? Because some people may say, well, look, you can have a good diet, but if you're constantly eating sweets or constantly drinking sugary, fizzy drinks, you're still going to get bad teeth. So are we certain that the majority of those extractions are caused by poor diet?
We have really, really good evidence that allows us to understand what causes dental decay in children. And very broadly speaking, it's about too much sugar too frequently. So poor diet absolutely 100% has an impact on oral health. And of course, oral health, it's not just about the teeth. We also know that if a child is experiencing toothache, they will have difficulty sleeping. And any of the parents listening to your show today will know that if your child is not sleeping, you are not sleeping as well. So there's a knock-on effect for industry, for school readiness, for that child's ability to learn. It's not just about oral health here. And as you say, prevention is significantly cheaper than cure. So we need to be looking at a rounded package of measures to support society's most vulnerable. And in this case, we're talking about children who are being forced into poverty through no fault of their own. And as a paediatric dentist, I would really support Marcus Rashford. I think he's done a brilliant job advocating for children. And yes, we support the paediatrician's call for the free school meals to be extended, at least until we know where we are going in terms of the duration of this pandemic and the duration of the effects. And also, we are working with food banks and with the voluntary sector to deliver toothbrushes and toothpaste to make sure that basic self-care is still happening at home. We already had challenges pre-COVID, and the last thing that any of us want for these poor children is that the situation is worsened by decisions which don't appear to be thought through at government level.
And it's important to say that all the numbers that we've talked about, and we keep mentioning children, but we mean everyone under the age of 18. So that includes teenagers, of course. I think sometimes people make the mistake of thinking, oh, children, sugary drinks, we're talking about toddlers or very young children, but we are talking about teenagers as well.
We can be. I mean, I have sadly had to take out all 20 teeth of a 2-year-old child under a general anaesthetic, and this should not be happening in the 21st century.
And that was purely because of diet?
That was really chaotic backgrounds. Sorry, I've startled you.
No, that was fine. It is quite shocking. I mean, to take all the teeth out, what was the underlying cause of that?
It was due to drinks being given in a bottle overnight, a family trying to fill up their child with items which that child shouldn't have been consuming, and then them to be having them so frequently through the day and the night that it caused decay to the teeth. And that combined with a lack of oral health in terms of brushing led to that situation.
So we're talking about a 2-year-old, no oral health, so no teeth brushing, that was constantly consuming sugary drinks. That's basically what you're saying.
Actually just milk, but sweetened milk, because that had been recommended in their family, and the parents didn't know any better. It wasn't a deliberate. It was a lack of education on their behalf. But the point that we need is that there needs to be education. There needs to be support. We don't need to be stigmatising these families any further. This year has been hard for many families. And as a society, I think we have an ethical responsibility to do something about that.
Now, during the pandemic, I remember talking about this on the radio at that time, that people were having severe problems. This wasn't exclusive to children, but people were having extreme dental problems. And when everything was shut, that created a massive problem. At the moment, if kids are having issues with their teeth, are dentists open, ready to receive them, ready to help? What's the current situation when it comes to dental help?
Well, actually, we didn't close. Some general dental practices on the high street had, for safety reasons, stopped face-to-face contact, but were still there to support their patients. And those of us working in hospital have had the busiest year we've had on record, because we've continued to provide emergency care for our children. The situation now is that most practices are providing face-to-face contact. There's certainly emergency care available, either via your family dentist in the first instance, and depending on the procedure needed, there are urgent treatment centres open around the country. But if things are not yet back to normal, certain procedures need us to have certain amounts of time afterwards to make sure that the aerosol has dispersed, and for additional cleaning and PPE. So we're not able to offer as an efficient service as we did pre-COVID, but we're slowly getting back to normal as fast as we can. The challenge really is access to general anaesthetics, because a lot of the dedicated teams that look after those children, so the anaesthetists and their support teams, have often been redeployed. They're working on COVID wards, and elective surgery has still not returned to pre-COVID levels. So that's one of our challenges for now.
And is dental surgery considered elective surgery in many occasions?
Yes, it would be. There's certain criteria that would push it into an urgent category. So, for example, if there was a swelling that was involving the face and where there's a risk to the airway. But most of the children on our waiting list would be classed as having an elective admission. So not one that needed to be done within 24 hours, but obviously one that the sooner it's done, the better.
Claire, thank you so much for bringing this to our attention, and thanks for giving us your time.
Thank you.
Claire Stevens there from the British Society of Paediatric Dentistry, who's also a paediatric dental consultant. 44,000 extractions of multiple teeth in under 18s in England in 2018-2019 at a cost of £41.5 million, all closely linked to a poor diet. That's definitely something to think about.